Hi everyone, welcome. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to connect to your private DB. Okay, and this time you are going to connect using what we call SSH. Okay, I've done a separate video whereby we connected to our private DB. Okay, using what we call SSM. Okay, session manager. So in this scenario, we are going to use what we call SSH. Okay, to this. So we have our DB in a private subnet. Okay, no private, no public IP. And we have also provisioned what we call a Bastion host, a jump server. Okay, with this one, we have provisioning into what we call a public subnet. To that end, it will have a public IP. Okay, remember these two resources are in the same VPC, therefore, they are in the same household, therefore, they can talk to each other. Okay, so what we are going to do from our own laptop, our own local machine, okay, we have installed a client, a DB client. Okay, previously we did the PJ admin, but let's twist it a little bit and install DBeaver. Okay, so DBeaver we have installed it on our local machine. From DBeaver we're going to connect through SSH tunnel, okay, to the Bastion host. Remember, the Bastion host is an EC2 instance that has a security group allowing an ingress for SSH port 22 from whichever address you want to. You can do it from your local machine, from my IP, or if you have a range, you can use that. Okay, once we're done, the DB security group will allow an ingress from the security group of the Bastion host. Remember, the DB security group should allow an ingress for port 3306 from the Bastion host. Okay, remember you need to have your what we call private key and public key. Okay, your private key will be on your local machine. This is for SSH. Your public key will be on the instance. Okay, by that I mean the virtual machine or the Bastion host. Okay, on the Bastion host, I created a user called DB user. Okay, that DB user is the one that is going to connect to the database. Okay, so let me go to the console and walk you through quickly. So we have a actually, yeah, that's it. Right. So this is the database. Right. On the database, as you can you see the security group? Yeah. This is the DB security group, and it's allowing the rule. This is the security group of the instance, which is the Bastion host. Okay, so if I click onto that, I open that. Okay, as you can see, come on, let me clear that. Right, so the DB security group, oh, where is that? Let's open that. Okay, can you see the DB security group? If I edit that, let me show you. So this security group comes from the instance. So we are allowing TCP 3306, and then the source, okay, is a security group of the Bastion host. Happy so far? That's what we've done. So this is the Bastion host, and as you can see, this is the security group of it. Okay, so if you look into the security group of the Bastion host, it's allowing you to SSH from whichever IP you want. Okay, so can you see that is allowing you? Let me go into this a little bit more so you can see. So you're able to do your rules to say SSH and then port 22 from whichever IP you want to use it. So we're going to connect from this IP. Yeah, that's what we've done. And quickly, right, let me go to the Bastion host. I'll connect first of all to the Bastion host just to show you the user I've created and then how we're going to connect. Okay, so how I'm going to connect to this, I have also created what we call the SSM. Okay, by that I want to securely connect to this instance using instant role profile. So this will allow me to connect to the instance and create a user. That's what I've done. So this is the public IP I've told you about because this instance is in a public subnet. So if I click on connect, okay, so I can connect to whichever way I want. But let me show you connecting using SSM. Again, I've done a separate video if you want to know how this is done. Okay, so connect to that. Give it a few seconds. It should be happy now. Yeah, it's trying to set up all the environment, and I think it's good. So once you are in, you have logged in as a session manager now. But like I said, I've created a user. Okay, that user I name it as DB user. Again, if you don't know how to create a user, on your what we call your Linux operating system, I will do a separate video on that. Okay, but that is not the main purpose of this. I just want to show you, the user I've created and then where I've published the SSH keys. So if I do sudo and then I think -su and then the username, so sudo -su and then if I do the name, which is DB user, okay, let me see if I'm able to, yeah, so I'm now in. So if I do, for example, who, okay, am I here? What's going on? Let me move back. Who am I here? Why am I? That's fine. Let's try that. Okay, can you see? So who am I? This is the DB user. Okay, so if I do ls, okay, actually ls, so -l, actually let's do -a. In here, I'll put SSH public key of this user. Right. What I did, I created the keys locally and I've stored it on my local machine. So if I cd in here, so .ssh, okay, right, and I do ls here, okay, I can literally cut this and then this is where the public key is stored, yeah, for this user. Okay, enter. So this is the public key. But on my local machine, I did what we call SSH key gen to generate the key. The private key was installed on my local machine, and I copied the public key and then install it here. Okay, right. So again, that is a separate topic altogether to do with Linux, so we will talk about that. But for now, we just want to connect to the DB. I just wanted you to show the user and where it is. So let's cancel this for now, okay? And then let's go back to my local machine and we will try and connect, okay? So here, to connect, all you need to do, you need the endpoint of the database, okay? The private endpoint, which is, okay, if you go to connect and then endpoint, okay, you can grab that. That is the endpoint. If you copy that, no problem. Okay, so on my local machine here, all you need, so the key pair, the SSH key pair that I've created, okay, I store that in what we call .ssh folder. In that folder, I created another, folder called SSH keys. In there, I have my public and then private key. Okay, so I will say SSH-I, so I'm going to connect through SSH, and then I'm going to look for the location of it wherever you create your SSH keys. Okay, make sure this is what you put here. Okay, mine is in my home directory.ssh keys, right? The -n means, make it non-interactive. So I'm going to connect to the Bastion host, but I don't want to have, executable command line. I want a non-interactive. Okay. And then -l, I'm going to create what we call the local host. So local port. So on my local port will be, this can be anything you want, but let's give it 3306. That's fine. And this will be the private endpoint of the database, okay, all the way to this point, okay. And then the host port, that is the port of the database. It's Aurora MySQL DB. Okay, that is it. That's the port it runs on. And as you can see, this DB user, okay, that is the user I created on the instance. Not hyphen, at the rate the IP, the public IP address of the instance. Right. So let me quickly show you. If you don't want to create the user on the EC2 instance, what you can do is on the instance, where is it? Instance, where are you? Okay. So here, let me show you this quickly. You can connect through the SSH. Can you see this one? If you want to use the Ubuntu user, then that means on this machine, on this virtual machine, you need to log in as the Ubuntu and then publish your SSH keys on there. Or whilst you creating the EC2 instance, you can create it alongside with your SSH key. Okay, by that you can literally copy this. Okay, copy this username at the rate the public IP and then put it at the end here. Okay, so those of you who really want to get this, just notify me in the chat and I'm happy to support you going forward. Okay, how to create that. But I believe you should be able to create EC2 instance with what we call SSH key. So when you create the EC2 instance with a SSH key, you can change this name to whatever name I just showed you. Put it here. But in my case, I created a different user on the machine and then I'm using the public IP. Okay. So if I press enter on this, this is what the SSH tunnel is happening on my local machine. And from here, I will connect using the DBeaver. So let's press enter. And it looks as if nothing is happening. Okay, so we're making it non-interactive now. So the tunnel has been created. How do we know? So let me quickly show you. So you see this command, so nc-zv and then localhost. Remember I said this is local, yeah, local host port. Yeah, we want to test whether the connection is established. Press enter and you see connected connection to the local host port, blah blah blah. So success, happy days. Right. So that means we created a tunnel. Yeah. The tunnel has been established between, let's go back if I can find this. So the tunnel has been created from my local machine, as you saw, to the instance. Okay. And we are trying to connect to the DB. The tunnel has been established and we saw a success. Right. So all we needed, this username with SSH, the public IP of the instance, and then the endpoint of the DB. That's what we've done. Okay. So for now, let's use our client. Okay, which is the DBeaver. What I need to do here is to create. Where do I create the database? Yeah, it's this one, and then we create new database. So we can use any of them, but let's go for the MySQL Go Nest. Okay. Remember, this is SSH. So we search our SSH bit, okay, on here, right hand side, you go to SSH, okay, and then should we make this a bit bigger or what? That's fine. Yeah, right, that's fine. So SSH, what you need to put here is the IP, public IP address of the instance. Okay, so where is it? You go back here to the instance. So this is with the public IP. If you want to go back, okay, to the instance itself, you can grab it here. All right, so go back to the DB and then you put it here. So on the DBeaver, you try to connect it that way. Okay, so the local machine, or just for testing here, I'm showing you how to connect using the DBeaver. If you don't want to try on the local host, that's fine, you can straight away come in here and do your connection here. Okay, so the username, okay, that is the DB username, the username that is going to SSH. For my one was the what was it called, DB user. So DB user. Okay, if you are using the actual instances, so it's going to be Ubuntu. Yeah, we are not using password, we are using public key. Okay, and then we need to find the location. Where is it? Okay, where is it? So this is my, okay, that's my key. For the private key, I'll say open on that. Okay, this is where it's stored, .ssh. Okay, and then after that, to be honest, I don't want to save this credentials. We can test it, but before we test it, let's go to the main. Okay, and here let's establish the connection, not localhost, but at this time we need the DB. Let's go back to the DB endpoint, private endpoint. Where is that? This private endpoint. Come back here, DBeaver here. As the host server, you put the private endpoint of the database. Okay, remember the username. What username did you use for the authentication? Okay, so if you go back to your DB, what username? Let me go to configuration, actually, connectivity endpoint. So this is the username, so I call it admin. Okay, I'll copy that, no problems. Okay, let me remove root and paste this there. The password, whilst you creating the database, the password you generated, okay, you put it here. Okay, okay, and then we can test our connection. Where is the test? Test connection. Okay, it's testing. Right, so connected, we're good. So we say okay. Okay, and then we finish. Okay, and here is the DB. Okay, you can open it up. Okay, database. If you can go in, and then you can play around if you're a DB admin. So from here, you have sorted out. Okay, remember the scenario. There is a request from the, let's say, data analyst to connect to a database. As a cloud engineer, you have provision. Okay, but you place it in a private subnet. It doesn't have a public IP for them to connect straight away. How are you going to do it? So for you to do it, you need a Bastion host in between to connect to the DB. So the client, okay, your DB administrator will use a client, connect to the Bastion host, and then to your DB. Remember, they are in the same VPC. Therefore, they can talk to each other. They are in the same network. And one more point, you don't need to forget this, okay? The security group of the database need to allow an ingress from the Bastion host, okay? And the Bastion host should allow an ingress from whoever is connecting through SSH port 22. If it is you, your IP. If it's a certain group, so a certain IP range. Okay. So I hope this is helpful. If you want me to dive in specifics, please let me know. Comment in the comment section. Okay. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. That will encourage me to do more videos. Okay. I hope this helped. Happy learning. See you in our next video. Thank you very much. Bye bye.